Today we're going to be making pretty fruit sandwiches. These are perfect for Instagram because you're basically making a little artwork inside your sandwich. However, that means that when you're making them, you need to pay attention to exactly where you're placing each bit of fruit in order to make the prettiest sandwich possible. If this is your first time to the channel, I'm Cassie and I experiment with different cuisines in my kitchen. I mainly focus on Japanese cooking, and these fruit sandwiches have been really popular in Japan lately, especially on Instagram because they're just so pretty. But now they're starting to get some traction outside of Japan too. I thought I would have a go at making these fruit sandwiches because everyone seemed to be quite interested in my 7-Eleven strawberry sandwich. But today we're going to be using a slightly different recipe with slightly different cream and no custard. And Japanese supermarkets only tend to sell the fruit that's in season, so strawberries are actually not available right now. So instead we're going to be using some kiwi, some grapes, some mango, and some peaches. The cream itself is quite vanilla-y and sweet, and I think goes really well with these fruits. So let's get started. So these are the ingredients that you'll need for any Japanese fruit sandwich, and that is white bread, sugar, cream, and mascarpone. The mascarpone is optional, however it will make your cream thicker and give it an extra bit of flavour. And to that end, we will also be adding a few drops of vanilla essence. The bread that I'll be using today is this crazy Japanese white bread that even has white crusts, and it's pretty sweet. And of course we're going to need some fruit. The fruit choice is ultimately up to you, but today we're going to be using mango, peach, kiwi, and grapes. We're going to start by whipping the cream. And Japan is pretty hot right now, so I'm going to start with a bowl of ice water. Cream whips a lot easier when it's cool, and you'll have quite a hard time if you're trying to whip it in a hot room without ice. Then we're going to carefully measure out 100 milliliters of cream. How do you feel about this new angle? You can see everything I'm doing. Then add about 4 teaspoons of sugar and start whisking. You'll see my mistake a little bit later, but this is only enough cream for 2 sandwiches. I'll put the ingredients for 3 sandwiches in the description below. Then, after a good 3 minutes of hand whisking and getting nowhere, you might want to get out your electric whisk. And once you've whisked that and got it to a kind of soft peak stage, then we're going to add our 100 grams of mascarpone. If you don't have mascarpone, you could use a different form of cream cheese, but this one is light and fluffy and works best. Then add a couple of drops of vanilla essence and get to whisking again. Now I wanted my cream to be very thick and easy to mold, so I kept whisking it until it got to this point. However, if you would like it to be a bit softer and smoother, then just whisk it for a little less time until it gets to your desired texture. Then pop that in the fridge for at least 15 minutes or until ready to use, and now it's time to chop some fruit. Seeing as our most simple grape sandwich requires no chopping, we're going to go straight onto our triangular peach and kiwi sandwich. So to do this, I'm simply cutting off segments around the stone. So we'll end up with a bit of a semicircle shape, but that has 2 perfect places to cut off some triangles. Those look pretty good, but perhaps a little bit more isosceles than equilateral triangles, so I'm just going to shave off a little bit to make them as equal as possible. Then I'll just repeat to get the 3rd triangle. Then we're going to prepare our kiwi. If you put your thumb on the top and then run your knife around the edge, you should be able to take off this tough end quite easily. Then you can do the same on the other side and start peeling. So to make these triangles, I want to start with a fairly even rectangular base. So I'm just cutting off the ends and getting a rectangular shape. Then I'm cutting that rectangle into a square or cuboid and carefully cutting down the middle with a sharp knife to create a triangular shape. We only need about 3 or 4 of these, so I've just chosen my best ones. And remember that it doesn't really matter if the ends have tapered off a little bit, as long as you know exactly where your middle line is going to be in your sandwich later. And for this one single sandwich, I seem to have ended up with a lot of fruit scraps, so I guess I'm going to be having a smoothie later. Next up is the mango flour sandwich. I'm going to show you everything that I did here, which means I'm also going to show you my mistakes. So first off, I started by trying to make a flower with my knife. So to do this, I wanted to start off with a square and then cut that into a hexagon, and then cut out little triangles to make a star-like flower shape. To be honest, it looked quite good from the top, but when I picked it up, I realized that the bottom had completely lost its shape, and I didn't think that it would hold its shape within the sandwich. I think this could work really well with a cookie cutter and a ripe mango, but I tried a few more times with the knife and it didn't really work, so I had to get another mango. Into the smoothie machine the rest of that mango goes. I'm going to start the same by cutting off a segment around the stone. Then I'm going to cut off the ends so that I have flat ends to work with. And then I'm going to get my metal straw. Using this metal straw, I'm just going to push straight down through the mango and make a bunch of cylindrical pieces. If you're going to do it the same way, it is essential that your mango is ripe and not underripe, because then it will be too hard and too difficult to do. So for that first one, it went very nicely and I was able to pull it straight out, but for this second one, it got a little bit stuck. So I got 2 takoyaki sticks and pushed them straight through the straw to get it to come out the other end. I repeated this process a few times to get the petals for the flower, and then I did it with a kiwi to get the green part in the middle of the flower. So here's my failed flower, and here's my... oh, well, it'll be okay in the cream. Then, to get the stem for the flower, I'm cutting off a nice rectangular slice of kiwi. Pretty simple, this part. And finally, I've also just cut in half 1 green grape for the leaves. And here's everything all together, plus a rogue blueberry that I didn't end up using. And don't forget the grapes, and oh, also don't let them escape. Each of these sandwiches is going to go into the fridge, and then we're going to cut straight through their packaging. So we're going to place down some cling film. Then get out your whiter than white bread and give your refrigerated cream a little stir before placing a dollop straight onto your bread. And spread a fairly thin layer across 1 slice. We're going to be cutting this diagonally, so that means that the pattern will come out from whatever you place on this line. So for our first one, we're just going to put a line of grapes alternating between green and red. And that looks like a pretty neat line to me, so I'm just going to place a couple of other grapes around the sandwich so that the rest of it isn't just cream. Then we're going to put cream in between every grape. This is very important for the line of grapes for the aesthetic when you cut it, but it doesn't super matter for the other ones because we won't be able to see those. However, you do want the flavour to be consistent, so it is best to get it into as many crevices as possible. Then just do 1 whole layer over the top. Then it's time to place our second piece of bread on and give it a little smush. And then cover it in your cling film and put it in the... oh, wait a second. Go and grab your pen from the other room and mark a line down where you want to cut so that we don't forget it later. Then you can put it in the fridge. Then we're going to move on to our next one by again putting a layer of cream onto our bread first, and then placing down our triangular pieces of peach. We're going to put these down pointy end up, remembering to leave some space in between for the kiwi. Then we're going to put some cream in between to make a little bed for the kiwi to rest on. Then add your kiwi pointy side down in between the gaps. Then put some cream on top, add a little bit of kiwi on either side, and layer on the rest of your cream. Then once again we're going to smush it down with our other piece of bread, cover it in cling film, put our line on, and put it in the fridge. And now we're going to move on to our... oh god damn it, I've run out of cream! I guess I'll have to... oh! This is a magic refilling bowl. Fantastic! So now with my magically refilled cream at the ready, we're going to get our cling film, our bread, and put down a layer of cream. Then seeing as this is the most complicated one, I actually drew a little sample to help me out. We're starting off with the little decorations at the bottom by placing down 2 of the strips. Then I wanted to check if the sizing was realistic, so I grabbed my strip of kiwi. Looks like it's a little bit short, so I'm just going to adjust that by pushing these in a little bit further. Then we're placing a little bit of cream on the strips so that we can place another one on top. For these, you're going to have to use your hands a lot, so if you're going to give it to someone else, I would suggest using gloves. Then once that's done, put a bit of a mound of cream on top so that we have somewhere to put our stem. Then place the kiwi stem on top of that mound and cover that with cream too. What, did you think this was going to be healthy? Give that cream a little bit of a slope and then place down the first 2 flower petals. Then put in the half a grape at a bit of an angle. Then put some cream in the gap between the petals and lay down the kiwi strand. Then again cover it with a layer of cream, which is the cement for the building that is this sandwich or something. And add your next petal. Then add the other one on the other side. And you guessed it, add another bit of cream. And your final petal on top. It'll look a little bit like this from the side. Then completely smother that with even more cream, adding some fruit to either end if you like. And finally, smush it down with your other piece of bread. Put it in your cling film, write down your diagonal line, and put it in the fridge. I would recommend putting these in the fridge for an hour or more to let the cream set a bit. And now it's time for the moment of truth. I know you guys have seen the thumbnail, so you know that it already turned out well, but for me this was a very tense moment. Hooray! The grapes turned out well. What a nice colour contrast. Now for peach and kiwi. Looks good. And the final one, arguably the most dramatic. Woo, it looks upside down. Woo, it looks good. I'm pretty proud of how that flower turned out, though I suppose the grape is maybe a little bit of a big leaf. And this is what they look like side by side. And this is what they look like after a day in the fridge. The flower still looks pretty, but the peach colourings have somewhat seeped into the cream. But they all still taste good. Personally, my favourite flavours were the grape and cream. I hope you've enjoyed this week's recipe, but that's it for today, so I'll see you next time. Bye!